Good afternoon, all of you, and welcome back to the ISID Research Seminar Series. Many of you must be knowing that ISID used to take up issues of national importance, especially from the point of interstate development in India. Today we'll be discussing a very important topic, that is exchange rate pass-through and its implications, especially on the BRICS countries. And we have a very eminent panelist to discuss this issue. We have Professor Saikat Sinha Roy. So I'll briefly introduce him. I know that Professor Saikat and Kanmurthy sir and others doesn't need any introduction, but still, just for formality, I'm just introducing. Uh, Professor Saikat Sinha Roy is a professor with the Department of Economics, Jadavpur University. And his areas of academic interest include open economy, macroeconomics and trade, macroeconomics, trade and development, applied economics with focus on trade, and other issues related to the emerging market economies. So before joining Jadavpur University, he has worked with the various prestigious organizations including RIS, Asian Development Bank, then British Academy of Social Science and Department of Economics, Lancaster University, and so on. So he has served as a member in a number of expert committees, including expert committee to review the Exim Bank's export leading index, technical advisory committee of Indian Statistical Institute, and the steering committee for promotion of exports for West Bengal, and so on. And he has published in several important national and international journals, monographs, edited volumes, and so on. And also, he was awarded the Shiksha Ratna Award. This is for academic excellence by the government of West Bengal in 2022. So, this is about Professor Saikat. And he has two other joint authors also. Unfortunately, they couldn't join us. So next, I will briefly introduce the panelist also. Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy is the director of Madras School of Economics, Chennai, and he was the first VC of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar School of Economics, University, Bangalore. And he has worked with several prestigious institutions, including UNDP Regional Center in Colombo, UNESCAP, IEG, NIPFP, and so on. And he was a consultant to various prestigious international organizations, including ADB, UNDP, UNESCAP, and so on. And he was also a member in several academic and government committees, and he has authored several publications and guided many students also. And for his high quality research and contributions to the social science, he has received the Mahalanobis Memorial Medal National Award in the year 2014 by the Indian Econometric Society, and also VKRV Rao Prize in Social Science, especially for economics, for the year 2015. And next, Dr. Rudrani Bhattacharya. She is associate professor with the National NIPFP, and her research areas include inflation, monetary policy, international finance, growth and development, dynamic stochastic general equilibrium model, and so on. She was part of three important working groups constituted by the Government of India, which including WPA Revision Committee, National Statistical Commission, and Expert Committee on Price Statistics. And she has published in high-rated journals, and other publications are there. And the third panelist is my own colleague, Dr. R. Rajesh. Is the assistant professor with ISID. So he has also published in several important journals, and he has been focusing in the area of international trade for so many years. So welcome all of you, and all the audience also. So I hope it will be a very fruitful discussion. So over to you, Professor Saikat, and you can take maybe around 30 to 35 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bina, for inviting me. Thanks to ISID also for hosting this research seminar. I'm really deeply honored, and the generous introduction which Bina has just now given, I don't think that I deserve all that, but anyway, we work, and so it's my time to present. This is a paper which uh, is already accepted for publication. Uh, uh, there is a volume coming on Handbook on International Economics for Asia and the Pacific to be edited by Professor Sugata Marjit and Professor Rajat Acharya, to be published by the Oxford University Press. And the paper that I had circulated, that has already gone there and it's accepted. But anyway, if there are comments by the commentators, they are most welcome. And we are in the processing of working more on the paper, or further extension of the paper. Now, the other thing that I wish to state at the outset is that I have two other authors, co-authors with me, Dr. Darpajit Sengupta and Dr. Rajabruta Banerjee. Darpajit was supposed to join, but he has got stuck because he's now a senior young professional at the Niti Aayog. So, and the Niti Aayog is having the annual conference of the chief ministers at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and some event got just postponed to the afternoon today, which was supposed to conclude in the morning, and that's why he's unable to join. He is feeling sad because large part of the work that is being done here is his, and this is an extension sort of his PhD at Jadavpur University on exchange rate pass-through in India, but this is sort of an extension of that work which he did here. Now, I had, and Professor Rajabruta Banerjee. Rajabruta was my student at Jadavpur, and now he's a professor of applied economics in University of Adelaide in Australia. So we three did the work, and the results that we have got, we thought they are nice to us, and but they're welcome to comments. Now, I have already presented this paper at my alma mater, the Center for Development Studies, in last January, and then at the Madras School of Economics, where Professor Bhanumurthy was also present. But he reserved his comments then, and now he should be giving me some more comments, and I would welcome comments from everybody else. Now, can I request the IT team to put the PowerPoint?
Yes, Dhananjay ji.
Yeah, full. Can you please make it full screen? Yeah. Next page. The paper is titled "The Dynamics of Exchange Rate Pass-Through in BRICS Countries." The paper actually decodes the phenomena of exchange rate pass-through to prices of tradables and to CPI inflation in BRICS economies. Now, traditionally, when we talk about exchange rate pass-through, they are within the theoretical framework of purchasing power parity principle, which predicted full and immediate transmission of currency changes into prices of tradables and domestic prices. Now, there is an emerging body of literature which suggests that exchange rate. So, in the traditional sense, often what it makes that exchange rate pass-through is complete, but a large body of literature has emerged which says that exchange rate pass-through is incomplete, varying across countries and industries, being conditioned by macroeconomic and other institutional factors. Now, post 2000, which with predominantly US dollar invoicing regime and complex global value chains in the world economy, exchange rate pass-through has become even more multifaceted. Among these determinants, the role of global uncertainty and geopolitical risks have emerged as critical in recent times. Now, next. Yeah, so by uncertainty, we here bring in certain things which are the COVID-19 of 2020, disruption of global supply chain which followed COVID-19, unprecedented volatility in currency markets and commodity prices, which impacted on stability of price transmission mechanism. Then you have the Russia-Ukraine conflict since 2022, US-China trade war which preceded that, strategic competition and financial sanctions, trade policy uncertainty, and the most recent, the Iran-Israel-US war and geopolitical tensions that followed. All these might lead to volatility in currency in the commodity market as well. Now, regarding volatility in currency markets, me and my co-author Suman Das, we have published in 22 for BRICS economies, and Das and myself have extensively written on this in 2025 on India. And for Indian commodity markets, Rudra Prasad Roy and myself in 2017, and there is another paper which is forthcoming for the recent period. So I'm not really reviewing those papers. Next. Now, why ERPT in BRICS at this point of time? Because it has not that BRICS, India has assumed BRICS presidency at the moment, but there is a macroeconomic significance especially of emerging market economies, because the BRICS collectively represent more than 25% of global GDP and trade, and yet exhibit diverse exchange rate regimes and external vulnerability profiles requiring differentiated analysis. There are external shock exposures. We have already talked about what are the kinds of external shocks. There can be commodity volatility, especially for Brazil and Russia, energy import dependence for China and India, capital flow sensitivity for South Africa, and these create asymmetric transmission channels of global shocks. Now, recent global crises, which we have talked about, they have spiked these energy and food prices. And here we bring in the incomplete exchange rate pass-through literature, which emphasizes inflation regimes and monetary policy credibility, systemic analysis of global uncertainty and geopolitical risk dimensions, however, remains sparse in the context of BRICS. Next. Oh, I will. Okay.
Dhananjay ji?
Can I do that, or? Yes, next. Yeah. Now here we have given what are the exposure of BRICS economies to major shocks during in the recent period 2020 to 2026. In 2020, all 5 initial BRICS, I am not talking about the new economies which are going to be members of BRICS and all that. The original BRICS economies, the 5, they were exposed to COVID-19 in 2020. In 2022, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In 2024, the US-China trade war that escalated, which started before, but it escalated during 2024, and it impacted largely to the 3 economies, China, India, and Russia amongst the BRICS countries, and not so much to Brazil and South Africa. And then Iran-Israel-US war in 2026, which is apparently impacting all of us. But in the analysis that follows, we will not take the 2026. We will leave the 2026 impact, and we will try to restrict ourselves for the period. The analysis will be for the period 1980 to 2023. Next. Let us look at the review of literature next. And there is I will talk a little more of the theoretical review of literature, and then the empirical literature. The theoretical literature, if you look at, there is a classical framework which is based on the law of one price and the purchasing power parity principle, which predicted complete pass-through under perfect competition. And then deviating from that, way back in 1987, there were 2 classical papers, one by Krugman and the other by Dornbusch, which talked about incomplete pass-through, which say that the exchange rate pass-through depends on the markups, where exporters adjust their markups across markets, and you will find heterogeneous ERPT depending on demand elasticity and competition. Now there might be nominal rigidities as done by Calvo and Taylor. The sticky prices and wages delayed ERPT response, short-run dampening versus long-run higher pass-through in new Keynesian models. Then there might be invoicing of currency, which leads to different kinds of pass-through, and there's a large range of literature which is emerging now, and there can be the invoicing of currency invoicing. You have PCP, then you have local currency pricing, and then you have dominant currency pricing. Now, apart from that, in the theoretical literature, there is the monetary policy credibility, where the Taylor hypothesis, which shows low inflation and credible policy anchor expectations and reduce exchange rate pass-through. At the end, there is a large and emerging literature of dynamic stochastic general equilibrium, which are micro-founded with nominal rigidities, staggered pricing, and financial frictions, reveal different state-dependent ERPT. Now, there is a separate paper by Darpajit and myself as part of Darpajit's PhD thesis on DSG. So we are not, in this exercise, we are not looking into the DSG model. There's a large range of empirical literature. There might be score stylized facts, as was reviewed by Goldberg and Netter in 1997. There are single equation and VAR methods used for empirical studies. There are industry and farm level analysis and there might be emerging cross-country analysis. Now, all these empirical studies, please go to the next page and next page and next page. I have very cryptically reviewed the literature. Next page. Please go to the next page. Yeah. Overall, all these empirical studies converge on a set of stylized facts. What are these stylized facts? Exchange rate pass-through is incomplete, lower in advanced countries relative to emerging markets on account of larger markups to absorb exchange rate shocks, heterogeneous across goods and industries, and depends on currency of invoicing. We have already highlighted a bit on local currency pricing and producer currency pricing and dominant currency pricing while talking about the theoretical literature. Recent works show that due to floating exchange rates and currency volatility, ERPT is neither constant nor linear over time. ERPT is found to decline over time with monetary policy credibility. Next. Now, with respect to the BRICS countries, I'll just briefly, there's a large emerging literature where myself and Darpajit, we have also contributed. And another co-author of mine, Pradyut, and myself, we contributed. And there is a large literature on India by Sushant Malik and others. They say that Brazil has high ERPT declining in the post-99 inflation targeting period. Russia, where substantial ERPT is there, and they are commodity sensitive, so they are heterogeneous across commodities. For India, it is incomplete, and existence of GVC or participation in GVC has dampened the extent of exchange rate pass-through. For China, there is low consumer and high producer ERPT, and it's dependent on liberalization. For South Africa, it's declining and credibility buffer. So in the region itself, or if you say BRICS as a region, the evidence is nuanced, and there are institutional contexts, and thus the study of ERPT becomes important in the BRICS countries. A fresh study of the BRICS countries becomes important. Next. Next. What is the research gap that we find? BRICS-specific inquiry into uncertainty and geopolitical risk. They affect ERPT, but it remains absent in the literature on BRICS, despite pronounced exposure to global value chains, fiscal turbulence, commodity fluctuations, and geopolitical rivalries. Now, what is the contribution of this paper to the literature? It introduces a state-dependent ERPT framework that accounts for uncertainty and global shock initially to start with, provides comparative evidence across BRICS economies on how ERPT changes with GVC integration and during periods of heightened external shocks. So while we do this, we first start with a normal baseline thing without the GVC for the individual BRICS economies, and then we go to the BRICS. Now, as regards the data, I don't know whether you are able to see, as regards the data, the BRICS economies, you start with the empirical analysis for the period 1980 to 85 to 2023, and this is for the annual data. Now, the data comes from four various sources. The World Development Indicators give us a set of variables. The export unit value, the import unit value, the world GDP or the global demand, the GDP of the domestic country, and the average tariff rates of each individual country. The international financial statistics by the IMF, they give us the nominal exchange rate. Hello? Yes. The nominal exchange rate, the oil price, and we have taken the Brent crude oil price here, index, and then for the domestic, that's for the global price, oil price, and then we have taken the CPI, the country-specific consumer price index. As regards world uncertainty, we have taken the world uncertainty index from the literature that is there, and Ahir Bloom and others, and you have where you have country-specific uncertainty frequency. So we take that and we use that in the analysis. As regards geopolitical risk, we take the geopolitical risk index from the literature, and again this is done by Caldera and others, and we have taken the geopolitical index from there. Now all these variables are put together, and we use the specification. I'll come to the specification that we use now for the variables, because it's a long time series from the 80s to 2023, almost 40-45 years. So what we have done that time series unit to whether they're stationary or not, and we have started with the augmented Dickey-Fuller test, then we have used the Phillips-Perron test, and then we thought that as it is, and we found that as it is a long time series, there might be structural breaks, and so we have used some endogenous structural break. We first did the Zivot-Andrews test, but the Zivot-Andrews test gives only its endogenous structural break, but it's a single breakpoint that it identifies. So we have used the Clement-et-al index, the method, which gives us more than one, and here we use two structural breaks, endogenous structural breaks for the purpose. Now, we have seen that sorry, next page. Next, we have seen that as regards the method, the variables are either I0 integrated of order 0 or integrated of order 1. And if that is so, ARDL model is considered to be the most efficient econometric method for the purpose. But as there is no I2, and with I2, ARDL cannot be used. This model outperforms, the ARDL model outperforms others in capturing the short-run and the long-run impacts of independent factors. It calculates short-run and long-run elasticities concurrently, even for a small sample size. So generally, all time series models are initially, to start with, they were large sample models. The sample size, if you look at the original papers, it used to be 100, but the ARDL model that often can be used for smaller sample size, smaller than 100, and so we have used the ARDL model here. So the Airedale model takes care of two things. One, the different degrees of integration of the variables. That means the stationarity and the small sample size, that is a smaller sample size, 40-45 year period. So that's why we have gone to the Airedale model. Next, full page, please give the full page. Now we have use three equations, the Airedale specifications. The first is for the export prices, the second is for the import prices, and the third is for the consumer price index for each individual BRICS countries. And you would see that they are the lag values and immediate lag values and the other lag values, they are all being used. I can run from 1 to n, but we have used that this specification, and we have used the long run bound test we have done and the short run test, and we will report you the tests now. Next. The Airedale bound test is found to confirm the presence of long run association between the variables in the BRICS, individual BRICS economies. The estimates, these are the regression diagnostics. The coefficients we will come in a while. The estimates from the ECM, the error correction, short run error correction, indicate adjustment coefficients in the range of 0.4 to 0.8, suggesting a moderate to relatively rapid speed of adjustment to long-run tradable and domestic prices in case of a short-run deviation for BRICS countries. Now, so if you look at the error terms, you would see the coefficient in the range of 0.4 to 0.8. Standard diagnostic tests confirm that the model is well specified, exhibiting no evidence of heteroscedasticity, serial correlation, specification bias, or non-normality of residuals. We have all checked that. Stability diagnostics show robustness of the estimated models. So we have used part of the model, and we have done rerun the regressions, and we have looked at. Now here we have the results. One by one we give you for all the BRICS economies. For Brazil, you would see, and we have two models, one with the world uncertainty index, the other with the geopolitical risk index. We have not used both these indices at the same time, either or, apart from all the other variables. Now you would see that in the short run as well as in the long run, for export prices, there's exchange rate pass through, it's negative and significant. For import prices, they're significant in the short run, but they vanish in the long run. And for the consumer price index, the same thing happens. It's significant in the short run, but vanishes over the long run. Now, so you have, to summarize the results for Brazil, significant short run pass through, long run import ERPT disappears, dual sensitivity to uncertainty and geopolitical risk, reflect exposure to commodity shocks and supply disruptions, heightens macroeconomic vulnerability in crisis period. So whenever there is a crisis, these shocks have impact, and it shows the vulnerability during this period. Now, next. Yeah, it's for Russia. For Russia, you would see insignificant export and import price pass-through, world uncertainty to import price sensitivity. There is world uncertainty to import price sensitivity, because you will see a significance at 5% level. Geopolitical shocks bypass pricing mechanisms to directly impact domestic supply or inflation, and sanctions regimes and supply chain disruptions dominate transmission. So supply chain disruptions play a major role in with regards to Russia. Next, but for all of them, the ECM exists. For India, robust bidirectional ERPT, exports and imports for both, reflects liberalized impact of liberalized trade regime and reliance on imported intermediates. Only BRICS economy with statistically significant long-run pass-through to inflation indicates weaker monetary policy credibility, anchoring expectation versus peers. Both import and inflation channels activate under uncertainty. Emerging market status amplifies vulnerability to global demand and conflict shocks. So you would see in the table that world uncertainty index and geopolitical index are both significant for all export price, import price, and CPI at 5% level. And there is import exchange rate pass-through for export price, import price, as well as the consumer price index. Next, for China, the results are a bit different. Short-run export price pass-through significance vanishes in the long run. In the short run, there was a 10% significance with export price, which vanishes over the long run. State-induced exporters absorb currency shocks via markup adjustment, insulates domestic production from volatility. So whether world uncertainty index or geopolitical index, mostly world uncertainty index, they don't impact on the prices, export price, import price, as well as consumer price in China. Administrative price controls and non-market pricing dampen transmission in China. Geopolitical risks, inflation effect present, but insulated from world uncertainty. That's what we said. GPR raises export prices, but WUI, inflation effect blocked, demonstrates policy credibility in anchoring expectations despite global demand fluctuations. Next. For South Africa, weekly significant short-run ERPT, because it's a significant for exports at the 10% level, for CPI at 5% level, and for import prices, it's not significant at all in the short run. Long run, only import price sensitivity is there. Inverse of Brazil, sustained import cost pressures after 2 or 3 years. So it works. If you look at the detailed results, it works after 2 or 3 years, reflects reliance on durable imported capital goods with lagged pricing. Import basket insulated from uncertainty. Inflation response to geopolitical shocks only. Structural efficiency in buffering demand side volatility. So you would see that there is significant heterogeneity across in the results across countries. Next. So if we put it in a chart like this, you would see that for Russia, it's only in the short run it's significant. It's only significant in the short run for CPI. For China and South Africa, they're weakly significant in export price, but CPI, they are significant in the short run. And for the long run, import price is significant. For India, it is significant whether in the short run or in the long run, irrespective of export price, import price, and CPI. For Brazil, the import price and the CPI over the long run, they do not have significant exchange rate pass-through. So you would see in a nutshell that across the 5 BRICS countries, there are differences in the result, and accordingly, they have implications for the economy. Next. Yeah, exchange rate pass-through, the coefficient is found to be incomplete. That's the first thing. Pass-through coefficients are higher in the long run than in the short run. In specific, pass-through is statistically significant for Brazil and India in both short run and long runs, suggesting pricing in local currency terms, because these countries often price in local currency terms, allowed them to do that. On the other hand, short run exchange rate pass-through coefficients for China and South Africa are weakly significant, and that for Russia shows no significance. Nominal rigidities and pricing to market behavior can be argued to limit immediate adjustment, while longer horizons allow for greater cost pass-through. So whenever there is a cost escalation, that can be passed through over the long run. Next. Thus, there is heterogeneity in exporters' pricing strategies, where trade openness and exposure to global competition, as in Brazil and India, amplify responsiveness to currency movements, as against managed policy environment exhibit dampened adjustment in Russia and China. Exchange rate pass-through to import prices almost mirror the patterns of the exchange export prices. ERPT to CPI is significant in the short run for all the economies, reflecting impact of imported consumer goods and tradable prices on the CPI basket. However, only for India, there is long-run significance in adjustment to CPI, indicating greater macroeconomic vulnerability to currency shocks even over the long run, over a longer period of time. Both global uncertainty and geopolitical risk exert significant influence, significant impact, but heterogeneous effect is observed across tradable prices and CPI. This indicates underlying structural and institutional heterogeneity in trade integration, policy regimes, and degree of market liberalization. Next 3 results I have, we have extended the paper that I circulated, including GVCs, and GVCs are found to be, but for this we have done panel data modeling, and because for individual countries we have not done it, we put all the countries together and did panel data modeling, and we found GVCs are found, presence of GVCs participation, moving up the GVC is actually dampening the extent of exchange rate pass-through. To conclude, after 3 pages, please go up to after 3 pages. Next, to sum up, ERPT in BRICS economies is incomplete I have already talked about, but economically and statistically significant, with outcomes shaped by trade structures, institutions, and external shocks. Export prices are primarily driven by global demand, while import prices respond mainly to domestic demand conditions. Inflation is strongly influenced by oil prices and geopolitical risk, with geopolitical risk affecting all BRICS countries. Tariffs, we have used tariffs in the import price pass through. Otherwise, the prices of landed price of imports would include tariff also. To separate the effects of exchange rate and tariff, we have included tariff in the regulations. Tariff act as an important channel of pass-through, and protectionist measures may intensify imported inflation. Uh, Economies with faster ERPT, such as India, Brazil, and South Africa, require credible monetary policy frameworks to anchor inflation expectations. Effective management of ERPT requires collective BRICS coordination to address shared exposure to geopolitical and uncertainty shocks. Last but not the least, let me just state it. GVC integration acts as a shock absorber, reducing the inflationary impact of exchange rate volatility while supporting higher value exports. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
I
so
took,
much.
I took little more time.
It's
Yeah, I
okay.
did.
It's okay. So thank you so much, Professor Saiket, for the very excellent presentation. And now we will move to the experts, starting with Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy. Sir.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, let me thank ISID for inviting me part of this presentation. An excellent presentation by Dr. Saikat Singharai, and the paper, which I think he very, although it took some time, but it made much more clear. So good that he has taken more time than required. And I think he also added GVC portion in the presentation, but the paper that we got, I think it doesn't include the GVC component. So that makes it much more complete in that sense of the term. And we also note that this paper is a continuation of the work Dr. Saikat and his students have been doing for almost 10, 12 years. So I think putting all these papers together itself will become a good volume in my view. Instead of you sending papers to other volumes, you should try to bring it out as a volume on ERPT. But then I also suggest that, if it is specific to India, I think it will be much more useful for public policy, at least for us in Indian context. By the way, I'm staying in some place where the connectivity is little weak, but let me try how much I can manage. Already 2, 3 times the power went off, and so I'm just trying to manage. In terms of the results, I'm not really surprised that for each country you have very different conclusions, because first of all, if you go back to this concept of BRICS, generally people worried that why is this all these 5 different countries have been brought together under one stone, which is called BRICS. So in that sense, we have a completely different setup, a completely different policy environment, and different endowments, different monetary policy frameworks, and different exchange rate regimes. So in that sense, the results that Dr. Saikat and his students have presented is not really a surprise to us. But I only thought, when it comes to India, I thought the ERPT studies could be slightly different, to focus more on slightly high frequency data, particularly the transmission from exchange rate to prices did not wait for 1 year. Okay. And that is one reason I thought it is better we can go for a slightly high frequency monthly or quarterly data. And I understand why the annual data has been used, because when we studied macroeconomics, we understood that long run means more than 1 year, right? Now, when you're talking about short and long run, it doesn't need to take 1 year. And I think maybe high frequency data analysis would be much more useful. In terms of conclusions also, Dr. Saikat, you have presented saying that, yeah, there is an asymmetry, there is non-linearity, and there are regimes. For all this, by using monthly data, could be much more, you get a slightly better, robust results. And that is what I was thinking. When you said short term and long term, when you said that ERPT valid in short term, that means in 1 year. In the long term, I don't know what you mean by long term. So in 1 year, if the ECM is telling you that almost 70% deviation is corrected, I would think that that itself is the hugely significant, and I think it's a very strong pass through in my view. So it may be taking just 1.5 years to have a complete pass through. That is what your ECM term is saying. I think that is one major uh, point that I have on your overall presentation as well as paper. But then I was looking at the literature, and then I also saw a recent paper by Professor Ramachandran and his students, which is published in this month, I think a couple of weeks back, in Journal of Asia Pacific Economy, where they also talk about exchange rate pass-through in an uncertain exchange rate environment. You talked about the global uncertainty and the kind of shocks that you're talking about. And I mean, we have used the standard databases, which have been Caldoro's kind of data. So I think there are a lot of studies that are using this uncertainty index as well as the other index that you raised it. But if you look at this paper, Ramachandran's paper, they talk about exchange rate uncertainty is one thing that they brought in. And they were looking at monthly data from 2011 onwards. And most importantly, when you say CPI has been used in your study in the 80s, we never had a CPI, consolidated CPI. I mean, these are all minor in my view. But then the RBI started targeting CPI inflation from only after you got this the consolidated CPI numbers. So they use that, and they find um, not very different from the result that you had, but then they come out with a slightly sharper results, where they say that very sharp depreciation or appreciation is something that will actually have a pass-on impact on the prices. But if it is a very narrow depreciation, I mean, again, they don't differentiate what you call a large or small depreciation, but because they're following the model called multi-threshold non-linear ARDL model. So in that sense, where they are actually differentiating regimes into large depreciation as well as small depreciation, and which is basically model derived. And they say that the large depreciation regimes, you have a complete pass through to the prices. So, okay. So a little bit of depreciation need not get into the domestic inflation. And maybe this is actually consistent with what Reserve Bank of India is doing, where they are not actually looking at a sharp depreciation. They are not going to control the sharp depreciation. Rather, they are going to look at some sharp, small volatility. Again, RBI don't define when do they intervene, and what is the volatility where the Reserve Bank of India would intervene is something that is not being defined. So in that sense, there is some kind of a black box, both in the from the RBI as well as the research that we have. What do you mean by a small depreciation? What is meant by large depreciation? Similarly, what is large appreciation and what is small appreciation? So in that sense, um, I think the data-driven models give some results, but I think we need little more clarity on what really needed and what is the extent to which Reserve Bank of India can really intervene. So that is one thing I thought I will bring it to your notice. In fact, we also need to look at in terms of the robustness analysis. Does the extent of foreign exchange reserves matter when it comes to exchange rate pass-through? Does the current account deficit matter? China is all along running current account surpluses. I mean, do they need to really look at whether exchange rate pass-through happens or not? And then when we come back to India, we know that India has been, like IMF recently said, India is like a crawling like peg, right? In fact, the transmission is not from exchange rate to prices. In fact, it's other way around. I mean, we are looking at only one side of the story. We need to look at how even the prices or the inflation is actually leading to, I mean, whether the RBI allowing the exchange rate to depreciate. So when they say crawling like peg, and I'm sure many of us understand that way, if exchange rate depreciates every year by 2%, around 2%, so we don't think that it is actually a serious cause for concern, because that is what the differential between US inflation and domestic inflation. So are we talking about the band of 2% inflation differential, which is actually equal to your exchange rate depreciation? So anything above that 2% is something that Reserve Bank of India thinks that is not really some kind of misalignment or something like that. So that is one point I thought I will bring it to your notice. Then my concern is, if you juxtapose your results with the current in the current context, now where the exchange rate depreciated to 95 plus or 96, and now there's a lot of concern about this exchange rate weakening, and my guess is that your results actually support that concern, where you think that exchange rate depreciation will actually lead to uh, pass on to all the prices, both import, export, as well as inflation, and RBI may have to be worried about, and whether RBI should worry, because of the inflation expectation going up, or because of other concerns, we are not really sure. Now, this is where some of us, in fact, my own paper on monetary policy reaction function, we brought in exchange rate volatility, exchange rate uncertainty in the Taylor series. Okay? I think it is there it's published in the volume in honor of Dr. Rangarajan, where we argue that Reserve Bank, um, uh, I think in a low inflation regime, the way we had in the last 1 year, the Reserve Bank's focus is more on exchange rate volatility and exchange rate uncertainty. And I think that is exactly what is happening right now. And I think my feeling is that those who think the Reserve Bank focuses only on inflation, and that too only in the post-inflation targeting regime, is actually not really true. And I think the stability in the exchange market will actually become much more important, particularly when the inflation is subdued for a very long time. I don't know. We have seen recently, Dr. Subbarao also said that the exchange rate uncertainty should also become part of the monetary policy reaction function. So in that sense, the causality is not always from exchange rate to prices. I think it's also it's some way it's a kind of a bidirectional. in my view. So I think that part, I mean, little more research on that particular aspect will be very useful. With that, let me stop here. Only one point is that, of course, I have gone through your paper. I printed and gone through your paper thoroughly. I have so many comments, small comments. Maybe I will share with you privately. It's a very minor comments, but one small point is that uh, those who are listening. I mean, I thought a multi-country analysis like this, it is better to have it in a panel data models. Otherwise, it becomes slightly difficult to express in a paper like this. You have seen that difficulty. In fact, even while presenting, I could see that the kind of difficulty you face to make it individual country kind of a. So when you said GVC panel data, I was so happy. I think that gives you slightly a kind of a general impression about emerging market economies. But otherwise, as individual countries at a multi-country analysis, in fact, we all messed up in the past. So it's a little difficult to bring clarity in the result that we have, particularly when we have more countries in the family. So with that, let me thank and congratulate Dr. Saikat for this an excellent paper, and also looking forward to read your handbook paper whenever it's published. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for carefully reading the paper and the most insightful comments. And next, we'll move to Dr. Rudrani Bhattacharya. Over to you, ma'am.
Presentation, the discussion slides, can it be, should I share?
Yes.
I share it myself?
Dhananjay ji, are you sharing?
We are sharing.
So till it's being uploaded, first of all, I'd like to thank ISIT for inviting me to in such an interesting discussion. We already had a lot of good comments, very interesting comments from Dr. Bhanumurthy, who is my senior colleague, ex-senior colleague. And so I will give a little bit of in a different kind of more limited comments, maybe, or specifically on methodology rather than the findings of the yeah. So quickly to summarize, it's the objective of the paper to investigate the exchange rate pass-through, in short, ERPT, in BRICS economies, particularly in a set of prices, export prices, import prices, and domestic CPI. And it also focus a lot in the motivation in the introduction that the objective is to look into how ERPT is affected by the global uncertainties and different indicators are used for that. Data methodology, annual data, yeah, that I said there's 3 types of prices are looked at and it's are taken into account for analysis, and linear ARDL methodology is used in the in this. So next, please. Next slide, please. So I'll not just go to the findings because we already have we had a lot of discussion on that. Is heterogeneous and what is important for India is that we see there is a both short-term and significant short-term and long-run ERPT into all prices. So just here, before going to the further discussion on the paper, I just wanted to just respond a little bit on what Dr. Bhanumurthy was talking about, that what does it mean by long run. So sir, actually in this type of models, ARDL or VACM type of models, so when we talk about long run, it is actually on the level, price level. was the impact on price level, whereas the short run means on the inflation rates. So because the model is that way specified. So when it is said long run, it means that, okay, there is a change in the exchange rate, and whether that changes the price level, and that is with other things unchanged, if there is no shock and nothing else, that impact will remain forever. So that in that way it's long run. And short run means is the dynamics of the change, rate of changes that is impacted. So that's how we should read the interpret the results. Now coming to my comments, is a very interesting. When I started reading, I was very interested. I was looking for a lot of things, but somehow towards the end, I felt it's a little bit of incomplete. Why? Is next, please. I'll just explain in a minute. Next slide, please. So there is a huge literature on ERPT, on single country, on BRICS, on emerging economies. So where when I started reading the paper, so what I expected, my expectation was that I will get new information on how this ERPT, the degree of pass-through, depends on the uncertainties, different type of uncertainties. But in this linear type of ARDL models, only doesn't capture that aspect actually. So it just says that when there is change in the exchange rate, how much it is going to transmit to different export price, import price, and domestic prices. So it doesn't say that how that degree of ERPT, that depends on the uncertainty. So here in the models, the methodology that has been used is actually control for the uncertainties, and say that once those things are controlled, so this is the amount of ERPT. But it doesn't actually say that how the ERPT can depend on the uncertainties. So that can be done in a type of regime switching ARDL models. So where the authors can look at that for higher level of uncertainties, when these indices are above a particular cutoff value or below a particular cutoff value, how the ERPT, the coefficient, ERPT coefficient vary depending on those two. So then it gives a lot of new insights in the literature. So I would suggest to look at in a regime switching way, rather than just a linear things, because just the linear things just say that just from the linear model we can only say that when there is a rise in uncertainties. So if as in the table of the results, it shows that when uncertainty increases, there is a rise in prices, all the prices. So that's what. But it doesn't anything say about how the exchange rate pass-through changes. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. The other thing I would like to focus on, that the ERPT, the degree of ERPT might depend on whether it's appreciation or a depreciation into when we are looking at the different type of prices like export, import, and domestic prices. Because export, for an example, the export prices, when there is a depreciation, the exportables becomes cheaper. So the exporters have less incentive to, pass through it to this thing. So you can, no, what I'm trying to say is that they less incentive to do pricing to market. So that means that when there is a depreciation, we can expect a higher pass through in exportables. Whereas when there is a appreciation, because now the exporters don't want to pass through it to as much in the to rise the prices in the market abroad. So they will be doing more pricing to market. So there will be the degree of exchange rate pass-through is expected to be lower. The opposite thing will happen for the input prices. Similarly, domestic prices the impact may vary across appreciation and depreciation based on whether there is a exportables has a higher share in the basket or is the importables. So this is my second comment. Now the third comment, next please. Yeah. So this comment is actually when reading the paper, there's certain things were not very clear to me. So, but in the presentation, it made clear that so in the paper, it was the bound test results were not shown anywhere. So I was very confused whether actually the authors have found whether they have found the long run relation, there is a co-integration relation actually exists or not. But Professor Sinha Roy has already explained in the presentation that is there. So that I don't want to talk. I will not go into those. But what I feel is that this study has a lot of potential, a lot of interesting insights to come out, but particularly adding to the literature in terms of how these uncertainties affect. But the methodology used is actually not appropriate to look into those questions. So I'd request the authors to look into this thing. So I think that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the very detailed comments. And I'm sure that Professor Saikat will be able to revise it or maybe write another paper based on the comments. We'll come back to the comments. And next, we'll move to Dr. Rajesh.
Thank you, Bina. It's always been a pleasure listening to Saikat and his paper, reading to this very thought-provoking paper. And one of the main contribution is that he has taken into account very systematically the uncertainty and geopolitical risk while explaining the ERPT in the BRICS country. So, and also a very important policy prescription regarding inflation management and the resilience under the increasing global uncertainty, which is very relevant in today's global scenario. So my comments were basically to stimulate some discussion, and the earlier discussion have already discussed several aspects of which I was thought of discussing here. So yeah, while going through the paper, at times I feel that the paper moves from the study of exchange rate pass-through to a broader study of macroeconomic vulnerability under uncertainty. So I feel it moves from this aspect to that. So because ARPT traditionally focuses on the impact of exchange rate on import prices and export price and ultimately to inflation. However, many of the channels emphasized in the paper, like geopolitical risk, the sanctions and supply chain disruption, etc. This can also affect inflation directly, without impacting exchange rate. That may be one aspect. So, in conceptually, how you address this, that is what first I was thinking. And the paper discusses several theoretical arguments, theoretical channels, like pricing to market behavior, dominant currency DCP, and state-dependent ERPT, etc. So I was thinking whether there is any unified framework here that discusses this, because I think, for example, pricing to market, that mainly focuses on firm behavior and market structure, whereas the DCP basically the non-dollar currencies have like limited pass-through, and also the mechanism and the result may differ across. So are they complementary to the analysis, or is there any unified especially for the BRICS countries? So that is what I was thinking. And also because we are focusing in the paper, the uncertainty. So what is the actual channels, through which uncertainty affects the price system? Like whether it is through the demand side, channels, or supply, the sanctions, and all, whether that restrict the supply and which increases the import prices. Whereas if in the demand side, the lower, export prices are, what one should expect. So that is what. And regarding the empirical methodology, as he mentioned, the ARDL, it's also because of the annual kind of data, which again, Professor Bhanumati has rightly pointed out. I think the literature mainly focuses on the quarterly or monthly data because the fluctuation in the exchange rate prices and inflation, so that may better capture. So that, I think, it was one of the one main issue with this. Another the aspect is like treating this world uncertainty and geopolitical risk and ERPT. Are they truly exogenous, or whether they are jointly determined? That is also, because it is possible that the causality can run both ways. So that is also like exchange rate volatility, inflation instability, capital flight, and all those things can themselves generate uncertainty. And like geopolitical risk can affect exchange rate, but exchange rate volatility and also can affect the uncertainty. So that is what I was thinking. And yeah, regarding the ARDL model, as Professor Bhanumati has rightly pointed out, and because of I think the annual number of observation may be very like below 40, 38 maybe, because of the lag and all, this has been used. So there may be a problem of overfitting maybe, and that kind of parameter instability might be a concern. So further robustness checks can be implemented. And as he like pointed out, the use of panel model, although you have done it for incorporating GVC and all, I think that is a very welcome addition. And also regarding the choice of this BRICS, as you mentioned in your paper itself, it's a very heterogeneous, and the result are also kind of differ. So because the structure of these countries are itself highly heterogeneous, even if the exchange rate regime or even trade openness and the kind of products that they export between like China, India, and South Africa, some are commodity driven countries and some are energy import dependent. So these structural differences and how you basically unify them into this, that I find it a little bit difficult. And here I was thinking about GVC, which is basically the recent literature also talks about, because of the fragmentation of productions, and firms do imports and then export. So the real effect of the exchange rate changes on is very difficult to predict, and you rightly incorporated them. And this also, I think, because of the Indian case, you find the long run exchange rate, and maybe that is because of the participation in GVC. Maybe that is one aspect that you can further look into later. Yeah, then I noticed that there is an opposite sign on the uncertainty variable. Like your paper finds that world uncertainty, it has increased the export prices in India and Brazil, but it lowers export prices in South Africa. So for the same variable, you find different kind of thing and magnitude. So it may be because of the heterogeneity, but I think some more discussion on this can be very like country specific explanation you can think of. And also the geopolitical risk, like for example, China and Russia, treating them as an exogenous kind of thing, it's itself very complicated thing because they themselves are contributing to the risk. So that way, I think as an explanatory variable, it's I think you can still look into this. And finally, on the border policy, you suggest like a common kind of policy that also in practical terms, whether it is really possible because of the kind of differing political regime in this country. So that is also one part. And finally, you talk about world uncertainty and all, but I think also you can also look into the domestic policy uncertainty in this country. That is one aspect. For example, India's domestic demonetization and all those supply, even China's COVID all, and even Russia's sanctions and all those things. So domestic policy uncertainty, how it affects the kind of thing. So yeah, otherwise it's a very interesting paper and I have learned a lot reading this. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Rijesh. So now I request Professor Saikit to very quickly respond so that we can also give some time to the audience.
Yes. Thank you to Dr. Bhanumurthy, Dr. Bhattacharya, and Dr. Rijesh for extensive comments, and that shows that they have very carefully read the paper and given me comments. We are really often what happens, people don't read the paper. So at least I got 3 readers who have carefully read the paper. Thank you, and for your extensive comments. Now, actually, when I started presenting, I forgot to tell one thing, that this paper was written for that handbook where the purpose was mainly a review of literature. But we did not stop at the review of literature. We thought we will generate certain results for the BRICS economies as simple as possible, and these are those results. Now, moving away from that, while doing the paper, we realized that there's a lot more to do, and the lot more to do has come by way of your comments, and we also already have started. One is GVC, one is the panel data analysis, and let me start with high frequency data, which came up for discussion. Now, for other countries, it is not really possible to get high frequency quarterly or monthly data for all the variables. And also for the uncertainty index, it's difficult to get. Maybe quarterly it might be there, but monthly uncertainty indices are not available. So what we are trying to do, we have already started doing for India, we have started working on India's export prices as well as India's import prices using higher frequency data, so that adjustments can be there. Okay. Now, and then draw conclusions with regards to the current scenario, weakening of the rupee and its impact on the results. Now, when we do that, actually, we talk about non-linearity in the exchange rate pass-through, but we have not really checked into non-linearity in the pass-through, because we thought that simple ARDL results would do for the time being. The purpose of the paper was different. Now we already have some NARDL results and non-linear ARDL results we have with us, and for appreciation and depreciation the results vary. The extent of pass-through, which Rudrani was talking about, the extent of pass-through has varied. We have not really looked into the extent, how large the depreciation or how small, which Bhanu pointed out, but we have looked into whether events of appreciation and depreciation have changed the results. And we found that for same exports, the incidence of appreciation and depreciation, they change the results. So we have NARDL. Now, as Rudrani suggested, we will do the regime switching once. That would be all the more interesting to come up with. And we would really actually, as Rudrani rightly pointed out, that this uncertainty indices and the geopolitical risk index, they were used as controls in the linear model. They were not used to check how they impact on the extent to which they impact on the exchange rate pass-through. That is an exercise that is worth pursuing, and we will definitely keep in mind about that. So we will look into that. Now, as regards the as regards the questions or the comments from Rijesh, yes, we have, for the sake of the paper, we have thought of an unified structure. We have not varied the model. Okay, we have not varied the model across countries, despite knowing the fact that there are different institutions, different policy regimes, different macroeconomic understanding for each of these countries. We have thought of an unified framework so that the results become comparable across countries. And that is precisely the problem when one starts doing a multi-country analysis or interstate analysis in a single framework. Then it becomes a problem, because every region or every country has a specific structure that needs to be treated separately. With that understanding, we started with single country analysis, but we faltered on the line that to make the results comparable, we use the same model so that the results are comparable across countries. That's where, if you say that's the fault line, it's the fault line, because ultimately we have to bring the results together. The heterogeneity across countries have to be brought out. The results showed heterogeneity, but there is still scope for more work using different structure for each individual country. Now, the exchange rate volatility is one factor which we haven't used in the model. We thought when we further do work on the same work, we would do things on that. Other points also have noted, but this I thought I should immediately respond to, and hope we come out with a more detailed and a better paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Saiket. And now it is time for audience questions. So I request to use the hand button. So before that, shall I ask? I will ask. This is basically, this is basically, I think, partially addressed by Dr. Rajesh, and he have also mentioned about the domestic, like within the country factors. So my question is like, for China, for example, they are self-sufficient, not self-sufficient, but in terms of production, they are having control over their own intermediaries in many products. And also, like, even for the products like oil that creates the maximum like volatility. So for those kind of products, they are stockpiling oil for a very long period. So in that situation, that can reduce the effect, isn't it? So, so do you think that is a good strategy for India also to adopt? Not only
Yeah,
for
I don't know. I don't know whether it will be a good strategy for India to stockpile oil. But this kind of analysis, actually, Darpajit has attempted this kind of analysis in his PhD thesis on the DSG model. He has used a DSG model where oil is also taken as a variable, because we say that commodity prices, especially oil prices, also change with the volatility. And so stocking oil, cushioning the oil prices against all fluctuations, that and giving a kind of stability, that is actually incorporated in the DSG paper which Darpajit has, which in his thesis, which is yet to be published. It is taking some more time to be published, but hope the results are showing that ERPT, the extent of ERPT, that is, as it is a DSG model, it's generic, it's not country specific. So stockpiling of oil generally has impact on or guard against a lot of price volatility that one looks into, including trade price volatility and domestic price volatility.
Thank you. So I request the audience to ask
One more
questions.
thing, Rijesh was talking about uncertainty, taking into uncertainty in the domestic market, because we have taken global uncertainty, and definitely we have used one domestic factor in the regressions. If you notice, we will use the uncertainties also when we further nuance the paper, when we have higher degrees of freedom and all that. We'll do that.
I think there is no question from the audience. So maybe I will ask the panelists to give the final message, maybe in one line. Everyone can give one line message so that the audience will get.
Bina, can I ask?
If someone.
Okay.
Bina?
Yeah, Dr. Isha. Yeah.
Thank you for a very excellent paper, sir. I have a question regarding what is the impact of GVC participation vis-a-vis GVC position? Because I think I missed the slide when you.
Yeah, no, I didn't show the slide. I'm sorry, because there was time running out. Now, GVC participation, and we have taken both the, GVC participation and GVC position, and both have actually, for export prices, they have improved. They have a positive relationship, and for import prices and inflation, they have a negative relationship. If you have we have also used the interaction factor, exchange rate multiplied by GVC participation, and the results for export prices, the results remain almost the same. The extent of pass-through has actually come down. The coefficient has come down, but for imports, actually it has got dampened. It was increasing exchange rate pass-through, but now it has dampened the extent of exchange rate pass-through. You know, that's the kind of results that we got in the. But we need to nuance the results. So this is a first cut sort of. So we thought that we are on the GVC line. So we are, because we thought that GVC might impact differently the export price pass-through and the import price pass-through and domestic inflation prices, obviously. So this is what we thought.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other question? I think no other question. So we can.
Yeah.
We can end the
I
presentation.
have already said whatever I had.
Sir, do you want to say something? Anybody wants to say something from the panelist? No, in that case, we can wind up. So,
Yes, I just want to repeat, it's a great, the paper has great potential once the regime switching is done. So
Yeah, I'll do the regime switching. I know we have in mind. Only unfortunate event is that Darpajit has got a very pressing job in the Niti Aayog. So I don't know how long, because he was supposed to come and present the results, and he could not come because his meetings got shifted and all that. So so I have to really catch hold of him to produce the results so that we can, because the entire data set is with him. But for regime switching results, as you know, Rudrani, we need little higher frequency data. That will help in pinpointing where the changes actually take place. So that higher frequency data is difficult, especially with respect to many of the variables. The key variables, exchange rate or export-import prices and domestic prices, that might be there. But other variables, it might be difficult unless we have do it at a more annual basis. It becomes a little difficult. We are trying the regime switching one. I don't know whether we will be successful or not. Let's see. Thank you for these lovely comments.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think the one point, the catchy point, is that the countries with a faster exchange rate pass-through, like countries like India, need a very credible monetary policy. So I think with this, we will end this presentation, and then we will have other areas of discussion in the future seminars. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me
Thank you.
chance to present whatever we have done and get very good comments from the commentators. I thank you all for being here and being patient to whatever I said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.